Hi everyone. So I'm gonna sum up my essay for all of you. The two works that I chose were between Edwidge Danticat and Derek Walcott, and the two works I chose to focus on for my essay were Children of the Sea, which is Danticat's work, and the various poems by the collection via Derek Walcott. So the title of my paper, not uplifting in any way. It's depressing notions of Edwidge Danticat and Derek Walcott. So that already sets the tone for my paper that this is not going to be an easy read. For me, there was definitely a sense of sadness and this like encapsulation of depression throughout what I was reading. So I really wanted to hone in on that and put it on paper. So I'll read off my thesis to you. So the recurring words death and crying, I'll elaborate more on my keywords. The recurring words death and crying throughout Danticat's Children of the Sea and Walcott's collection of poems draw out this complicated history filled with despair and hardship, further shaping their literary style and historical context. So basically what I'm going to be focusing on is how these two authors bring about Anglophone literature and give a historical perspective to their readers so that they can better understand what's going on, what these people went through, what may be going on in their head, or may be something that's lingering, or things that are problematic. So speaking back to my keywords, I chose death and crying. And sometimes in the stories, and in the short story as well, it's not used directly as death and crying. Over and over again, I kept seeing dead, crying, cried, past, present, future tense, plural, singular, what have you. So there was just consistently a lot of negative connotations throughout my paper. Put my glasses on now because I do not have good eyes, but anyhow, so basically in the beginning of my essay, I focus on Danticat's Children of the Sea. That's kind of where I wanted to set the tone. And from that, I talk about how the two lovers are writing back and forth to each other, one being the woman who's back home and the other the man on the ship. I might have missed this detail, but I couldn't really grasp some names to put to these faces, or at least these two individuals who were writing back and forth to each other. So I'll read off a few quotes that I put into this first paragraph. So at one point, the man on the ship says, "I am more comfortable now with the idea of dying. Not that I have completely accepted it, but I know it might happen." So basically at this point, to give a little bit more context, he's on this ship heading towards the United States. He's leaving Haiti. He's a college graduate. He's passed university exams so that he's eligible to go to the States. And he's gotten very numb to the idea that he might not make it, that this ship has some issues. The ship is breaking. There's a lot of holes in the ship. There's water leaking in. A lot of people are sick. A lot of people are hungry. It's unsanitary. There's nowhere to use the bathroom. Lots of seasickness, and a lot of people with a whole lot of different stories. It's not just this man on the ship. He acknowledges that there's different people on this journey, including a pregnant woman who was raped and abused various times, and sort of how her experience back home almost is similar to that of how his lover is living back in Haiti, how there's soldiers in the country and they're taking advantage of citizens and not really giving ideal living conditions for people. And sadly, what I'm trying to get at with that, and what I see coming from this literature, is that the aftermath of colonialism and the poverty and poor state of these countries and the civil war and unrest going on in a lot of these places really creates a terrible circumstance for a lot of people. And what better way to do that than to get out? So, we have one person talking about life back home and another who's desperately trying to get away from it, but at the end of the day, Is it better being on this ship or is it better being back at home? Well, according to the details of the text, that there's really not much positive to take from any of it. And going off of that, that's why I was focusing so much in on death and crying. Another line reads, Cillian, the name of the pregnant woman, is lying with her head against the side of the boat. The baby still will not cry. And later another line comes from that and details some more grim details. The soldiers tied up Lionel and their mother. Those were some people that Cillian had some sort of relationship with. Then they each took turns raping Cillian. So, it's not really something you want to look at and think, oh, like, there's something positive. No, it's very dark. It's very depressing, and it's just not very enjoyable to read. Like, I must say, finishing up this paper and getting, chugging along, doing my paragraphs, I definitely felt this sense of uneasiness, and sitting down, taking breaks, I did not have a good feeling going through me. And then shifting that focus to Walcott's poems, I elaborated on Elegy, Ruins of a Great House, and those were a little bit more representative of symbolism and allegory, and a more like allusion to life and its conditions for these people, instead of like directly talking about this is happening, this is what I'm going through, this is the situation happening right now. This is more of like a symbolic interpretation of life. So one of the quotes that I have written down is, "A smell of dead limes quickens in the nose, the leprosy of empire. A spade below dead leaves will wring the bone of some dead animals or human thing, fallen from evil days, from evil times." So what I took away from that is there was a intrusion within the lives of these people via imperialism, and a lot of death and decay came out of that. And from that we see that the individuals going through these things in the groups and cultures and peoples were really terribly affected, and it erased a lot of history for people. And even to this current day, we still see the consequences of it. We have health inequality, police brutality, the list goes on and on. I'm not an expert, but it's pretty hard not to see these issues still going on. And so then I keep talking about, how death just keeps coming up in that. And then another quote I have down here is, "As dead ashes lifted in the wind, the fans, the blackening ember of the mind, my eyes burn from the ashes, prose of dawn." And then another quote I have where I see the word crying again. Che's bullet-riddled body, some more individual who died. And those who cried, "The Republic must first die to be reborn," are dead. And I must admit, some of these quotes were a little bit confusing to me, but I do see that there's an oppression that was put on these people, and they were left to try and figure things out for themselves. Not to say or unacknowledge the fact that these people needed freedom. They needed to be set into their own world and given their own choices to do as they please, and imperial control needed to die out. But what do you do when you have hundreds of millions of people who are left to make up whatever decisions and rules they want, and a lot of corruption and other negative consequences come from that? So my paper really just hones in on these very depressing and somber qualities. And I think something I noticed from these is that an escape from this is actually starting to go towards those imperialist states, go towards those countries that were former colonialists, and seeking a better life there, because where they were and where they're situated after all these years and decades and centuries of oppression and slavery and what have you led to just a complete disaster. So thanks for listening in. I know this was a little bit long, but it was a very thought out and deep paper that I think has a lot of things to offer. So thanks.